This video should finally help y'all catch up on my situation. I've been on and off making videos so much, things just seem so inconsistent and out of place. Another almost 3 months of being inactive and dealing with situations, trying to get back on my feet. Is this life or what? I don't know about y'all, but I got some mad stuff to let off my back. I could have made this video in 2022, but honestly, I probably wasn't in the best headspace for it. But now that I finally have some spare days to be working on stuff like this and some newer shit, now's the time to get on with the video. Before we continue, please make sure to give this video a like, subscribe if you're new to my content, and don't forget to click on the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload. And let's play The End of Domestic Violence and Homelessness 2. Original version of this video, I explained my legal situation regarding my 2021 arrest and how I was legally homeless for the first time, just 3 weeks into the whole situation. It was definitely mood breaking, but that homeless lifestyle wasn't anything new to me. I've been homeless many times beforehand, given that I've been kicked out and slept outside as early as 2017, but because the no contact order was issued on my first court date, I was legally homeless until my soon-to-be roommate at the time basically rescued me while I was in and out of people's cribs, including my ex-girlfriend's mom apartment. Probably the closest I'll be to being pussy whipped for a long time, if I'm gonna be brutally honest. Her and everyone else that was close to me essentially turned their backs on me after that whole other situation of getting beat down, framed, and left for dead. My ex a few months down the road even slept with my ex-best friend, who also wanted to fight me over an underage girl he broke up with and was beating on himself. I was so blind to the crosses when I made the original video of this shit, man. I was only 3 days into moving out of town in the middle of nowhere, but none of that shit even mattered anymore. There's so much new information related to this whole situation that happened in the past year and a half alone. Right before we get into the story timeline, I want to briefly talk about my court sessions between when I uploaded the original video in March 2021 and the beginning of the timeline this story should start. All the other information I've talked about with my court cases are spread out in different videos. I had a pre-trial and a trial in May of 2021. Both of them were hosted online in video calls. The pre-trial was to determine if I was going to take the domestic assault and disorderly conduct charges to trial, and not only I couldn't afford any type of lawyer and had my mom testifying against me. The trial was a lecture of my judge and attorney explaining to me that I was facing 90 days in jail and that I basically had the options to plead guilty to both charges to serve off that time, take a plea deal for the disorderly conduct charge only for probation, or essentially take it to trial, be found guilty for saying my stepdad's name in a phone conversation prior to getting socked in the face several times, and be fucked both ways. Safe to say I took the plea deal and the domestic assault charge got dropped, which had the charge stayed on my record, it would have literally prevented me from ever being able to legally defend myself with a weapon and get good career jobs for the rest of my life. After the trial, I had a sentencing date in August 2021, but when the time came, it got rescheduled to January 2022 thanks to COVID. Somebody got caught with it, I guess. Starting with the time I began to work with my roommate with a different company. I had already worked with Bro in another company where they had us doing side jobs for a quick buck. I also had already lost my own job in my car later in 2021 because of the pay grade of that job I had, and the suspension of the car gave out on me. I couldn't afford to do shit but junk the car for money. My ex-roommate found the keys to the car a couple days after I junked it too, so I didn't even get to retrieve anything I left in there before my dumbass lost the keys. My car always had a suspension problem, but I fixed it temporarily with 2 big bags of plant dirt from a Walmart over the previous summer, since I was cheap and didn't really feel for the cost of taking care of the wobbling and really just everything else with the cost of fucking living these days. Once upon a time, I started doing a new job with my ex-roommate in December 2021. A month later, he brings up $1,000 security deposit he placed optionally without my knowledge. He was basically just going to leave me hanging after everything. I never really expected anybody to have their hand all the way out there for me, despite how fucked up my situation got already. But it's just not fair when you agree to live with someone under a lease and they don't tell you where all the money's going, and then as soon as it gets taken from them after they had already done left you to rot and be homeless again, they still expect money back from you. He didn't even have an issue picking me up to save me and bring me all the way to the courthouse for free, but after he moved out with his girlfriend and I stopped working with him, he expected me to find another job with no type of transportation or resources and in sub-zero degree weather. I mean, Did was trying to charge me to come to work with him just because he had to pick me up. At that point, I knew he didn't give a fuck and wasn't trying to help me anymore. So I'm left in an apartment in early 2022 with 2 months left on the lease, not even, and nowhere else to go, right? I'm not even gonna lie, I was spending days at a time naked walking around without a soul to speak to. I had just got sentenced to a year of probation, and I lost that job the day after to the snotty manager getting all worked up about my business. I had a couple weed plugs, but I'd only hit them up to pick up big amounts to last me. I spent the rest of my money on food and weed. I even went back to stealing food again, just like that. Eventually, my stepmom reached out to me. I told her about my situation to an extent. She offered for me to live with her as long as I didn't smoke. In fact, I had to convince her that I wasn't already smoking prior to arriving to her crib. I only had a couple garbage bags worth of anything to my name, so it wasn't like I thought I'd lose much, but man, do I be fucking up in life. Just 3 or 4 months after I moved in with them, I relapsed on nicotine, and I was already being threatened to be kicked out several times over smelling like weed, coming home late, and just petty stuff for a guy my age. I was almost 10 months clean before I lit up another cigarette. Not to say I was in the right for anything, but I just really hated being cooped in the house at nights where I had a lot on my mind, and they wouldn't even budge for a walk or a store run. My stepmom and dad were strict parents. They were basically treating me like I was still underage. I was already 20 by the time they started tripping about 9 p.m. curfews. It really sucked living with them. Fast forward to the beginning of summer 2022, and I get a hand-me-down car from my dad. At the time I was working in demolition. One day at work, I was throwing away a bunch of metal waste with my boss, and towards the end of the day, I noticed my keys to the car were missing. Luckily, my car was parked at a parking ramp before my boss went and picked me up to carpool to that side job. After an hour or two of clearing out his trailer filled with metal waste and essentially finished the day of work, my boss made the first offer to go back all the way to the job sites to look for the keys. Unfortunately, we didn't find it ever, and eventually he had to bring me back home. I had to buzz into the apartment and tell my stepmom that I lost my keys to the crib in the car. Luckily, the car was parked in a public parking ramp before my boss went to pick me up, so I didn't want to get towed. I would get my keys replaced a couple days later, but honestly, some shit would take place over the next few days where it was basically not even worth keeping the replacement. I eventually got kicked out, but I didn't even return the car. My stepmom asked for it back, even though it was my dad's car, and he didn't say anything about the situation at first. I was homeless with the car for just 4 days until the car got towed at an apartment parking lot, just 12 hours into my stay there. I come to find out the next morning that not only was I supposed to have a guest parking pass from the landlord in the office, but I just so happened to get a call from probation regarding my living situation and a random future drug test. It honestly couldn't have been more shittier of a day or week. My dad was even more pissed that I didn't tell him the car got towed right away, since I thought I could get it without him finding out about it, but things fell through. I lost all of my clothes and belongings, and I was fucked in the end. I stayed at the apartment where the car was towed for almost an extra 3 weeks. The only reason I even showed up to the place was because my stepbrother was there and I wanted to hang out with him and meet his friend. His friend didn't have the courtesy to tell me about the parking rules, considering he was staying there long enough. It was actually the friend's older brother's apartment, but that guy had actually agreed for the little bro to stay at the apartment away from their parents while he stays with his girlfriend. It didn't surprise me when he told us that he actually had his own car towed a couple months prior and never got it back. We had a plan for him to get a loan and to get both our cars out, but even after we found a legal co-signer, the whole plan still backfired. On top of that, I came to find out that they had an eviction notice the entire time. I think it's also worth saying that my stepbrother, who really invited me over, his friend's older brother and his friends are kind of assholes. Most of them were a couple years older than me. Stepbrother and his friend were fresh out of senior year in high school. I was already 20, but I definitely felt like they used their age against me in a way. I mean, 3 of those people pulled up to the apartment to escort me out on some forceful, violent shit the day after I left, hearing them over the phone talking about how they were going to press and rob me. And I was literally just hanging with these motherfuckers just a week prior to that. I guess they felt like they wanted to be narcs and expect money out of my own situation, but I was nowhere to be found. I was already walking out on the street with a duffel bag full of clothes in the middle of a hot summer day. Eventually, I made a big sacrifice and essentially accepted that I'm probably going to go back to jail doing this, but I went back to my mom's house. I just couldn't handle being out on the street for any fucking longer. I had already been homeless outside of that apartment situation for almost 2 weeks, walking all around town and house hopping again. I actually stayed at one buddy's house on 2 separate occasions during this whole incident. This guy was letting me stay with him on and off for basically the past couple of years now. I broke his bong on accident one day and paid him back for it a couple months later. I'm just glad he was pretty much cool about it, because I was already back on the edge, man. I don't really know if I can even fucking handle being around friends trying to have a good time and keep good energy anymore because of all this bullshit I've witnessed and how much it's literally affected me in my whole life. This shit is a drug, and it's fucking deadlier than fentanyl. Just take a look at almost every world disaster caused by humans. It's Crazy to me that people even think that any regular person or kid who went about their life as a citizen just wakes up one day and decides to go ballistic, take life-threatening drugs, or murder people first thing in the morning, like they get any credit for being anything in life. The world is never going to understand, man. If anything, there's more people that will agree to the fact that I'm against the world being a better place just for saying that. I lived with my mother again for about 3.5 months. My mom and stepdad were completely oblivious to my anxiety and pretty much everything that caused this much tension between us in the first place. I was violating the no contact order against the house and my stepdad, thus there being 2 violations. It was just about everything I expected coming back to that damn house. My parents were fighting verbally and physically with each other, more verbally. Doing that with me at times. They got married behind my back while I was out of town. Dude even had his own crib while living with us. His own apartment, paying rent, knowing he's got a married wife at the crib with stepchildren. He climbed the fence and through my bedroom window in the middle of the night, drunk as fuck once, just to get in the house, and believe it or not, he'll be 60 years old in just a couple of years, and a half years, not even. They would randomly come into my room regardless if I was there to take change and anything else they felt like I wasn't worthy of having. I even discovered I was sleeping on a fiberglass mattress and was forced to use the same fucking mattress with different covers. I was probably breathing that shit for a good 3.5 months too. I wouldn't be surprised if that explained me being sick in November last year. While I was living with my parents, I was running into the police several times when I had the warrant too. I think the first 5 encounters with them, I didn't even know I had the warrant or the knowledge of essentially fucking myself over by simply identifying myself in any legal situation. I even had people telling me, and even eventually saw for myself, that there would be police sitting outside the house or around the house patrolling the same fucking street my mom was staying on. And I found out about the warrant all after this. There's a small possibility that probation services found out I was lying about the new living situation and thought I was dodging them when I lost phone service. At least that's always a theory worth worrying about. They didn't even email me anything about the warrant either. I had to find out for myself online. I could have been hanging around this entire time not knowing about it just to get arrested out of nowhere and not tell anyone about it. Just to think I could have been in and out of jail and in the streets again, and it literally starts with petty crimes like these. People love to underestimate what they don't see and speak on shit like I got a guarantee from anybody worth living for and not being fucked up in your decisions, just trying to do the same shit. Honestly, might make a video on all the police interactions just solely due to the amount of that I had to deal with. By November last year, I finally ran away from that house. I was outside smoking at 3 in the morning. My mom was home sleeping. She woke up and suddenly caught me coming into the house smelling like weed off of me again and threatened to call the cops. I didn't even need a warrant for me to realize I needed to get out of that house right then and then. Luckily, I pretty much had everything packaged as I really wasn't planning on staying there much longer after my initial plans of running away a month prior to a hotel fell through. I definitely still would have gotten violated and went to jail had I stuck around the house with the cops showing up. Luckily, I had a spare bike my old neighborhood friend gave me, but I left it at the gas station. I didn't want to carry a bike with me everywhere in case I had a ride, and I also didn't want any of my coworkers to find out about my situation. I had my bags of clothes and shit I had to leave by a dumpster, man. I stayed outside once overnight, and the next day after work, a buddy of mine was able to pick me up from work to attend a cave party. It was pretty fun, actually. Besides basically being brain dead at work, talking to people for a job, it had already been months since I felt that social. To be honest, I literally haven't felt as social as I did then, and I probably won't get there for at least another year or two, as long as my situation is going to last. I stayed at the cave party with who would pretty much be my roommate after that night. We left around 1 in the morning and didn't get back home until almost 2. I crashed on the couch and essentially called the patio my home with the help of a cave party invite and a friend. The end. The morals I have for this entire story is, don't cross your loved ones in any way, shape, or form if they are willing to ride for you. Don't set your child up for failure or do any of the things I've described in my entire YouTube channel to them. It sucks that not enough parents are being punished for this kind of crap. It's really sad. If you really think about that and the concept of believing in a higher up, you really start to see how everything unfolds in the world. Keep your peers in the loop when it comes to roommating to avoid any conflict. As y'all heard, this is just an example of me falling off with a handful of people. From a security deposit situation to the eviction notice situation. Man, don't get into nicotine if you don't do it already. It's not the most deadly, but it's definitely a pain in the ass. It had me spitting blood. Honestly, don't want to go back to it. Stay out of toxic relationships. This shit should be all self-explanatory. Don't do drugs, stay at work or in school, get a bag or good grades, and keep watching my YouTube videos. One more thing I want to talk about before I end this video today. From the day the warrant was issued back in August of last year all the way to the last month, when I just turned 21, I saved as much money as I could, which was about 7 grand. My plans changed a lot on the way. Originally, I was going to keep my Burger King job, run away from my mom, which I guess I ended up doing that, and to be sleeping in a car until I was able to just get an apartment. It was a poorly constructed plan, but given what I said so far in this video, you would see why I at least felt like I didn't have a better option for myself. Now, I'm currently trying to get enough money to afford getting out of legal debt from basically getting fucked over through overdraft fees and living with my roommate a couple years ago, an apartment with 3 months of rent in advance, a truck for the winter time, all of the legal fees the court system's going to throw at me after I deal with the warrant and get thrown out of jail again, and just a little extra to enjoy for myself after essentially risking the last 7 years of my life trying to become a legit legal citizen. My mom was calling me in as a runaway as early as 2016. Now that I don't live with her, or anyone that ever wanted me to live with her, I have a real shot at saving up a lot of money and actually getting my life back together. Weed is going to be legalized on the 1st of August here in the state of Minnesota, so after the case I can actually use it legally for the first time ever, now that I'm 21. I don't want to keep putting my energy in other people's issues or my mental health or anything that keeps putting me back in square one. It's a waste of your life that no one ever needed to live for. I quit my job last month to recoup though. I'm currently going through a couple of staffing agents, so hopefully I can make everything happen soon enough. I've been pretty much sitting here with a car now and some money saved up, plus the ability to get fucked up off of weed and liquor 24/7. Once again, I really appreciate y'all watching my video after all these years. It really gives me motivation to make YouTube videos again after being inactive for a while. You would think people are just quick to give up on a nigga just like real life, but I guess some people just like to stick around on the internet. I've been making YouTube videos on and off for over 9 years now. If I ever make a career out of this, best believe I'd be social again. If you like this video, please give this video a like, subscribe if you're new to my content, and don't forget to click on the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload. Share this video to anybody that's ever experienced domestic violence and homelessness, and I'll see y'all in the next video. I'm going to be planning on uploading videos twice every month. I know my word isn't all that credible considering all the years of inactivity I've spent combined pretty much, but I know all it takes is not the words but the action to prove the statement. Enjoy the wait. Peace out. Sauce.